Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast who every 2 weeks, even though this has been 3 weeks since our last recording, we come together to talk about an anime that we recently watched. We discuss it like a book club, and we turn it over to our comment sections across YouTube or email or Twitter or wherever you want to comment, and let you carry on the very discussion that we start here because we live up to the name of our podcast. The anime that we watched was Odd Taxi, and to help me discuss it, I need the help of my co-host. So first off, we have the Robert De Niro to my taxi driver, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a busy week, though. 3 weeks. But especially this last week has just been really busy. Work's been a lot more busy than usual. But I did manage to get some time in to finish those stories I started last time with XCOM, and I got up to 51 characters with their own custom stories now and their own custom design. Yes, it is so cool. I started playing and getting these characters. I also downloaded, there's a pack, there's a mod where you can get 250 backstories for characters that are roughly about a paragraph or two. And it's mostly soldiers, but you also have the other kinds. And so I have it set to pull from my character pool and then also from the standard, whatever those 250 stories are that happen to show up. And so it's really fun because I get soldiers, and sometimes I have to go in and fix the invisible heads and invisible arms and like all kinds of weird stuff because I know that they're not mine. But I've had enough experience making cool-looking, consistent characters now that even those ones are coming out as looking really distinct and unique. And so my propaganda photos are it's so cool. Like you can look at a glance and be like, I know exactly who that is, and that one, and that one, and that. It's really fun. I love it.
And he's 4 missions in.
Yeah, actually, I have 45 soldiers now. Because you need that many with the covert infiltration. It's nuts.
All right. And we have the Queen Latifah to my taxi, Jason. How are you doing?
You know, it's funny because you reach back like with the first reference that nobody in anyone but our generation is going to recognize.
Only the most famous taxi movie of all time? You're right. Who would ever get that?
But name one person that's under the age of 25 who's seen it.
Albert.
You just randomly pick a name. Good.
Right.
Like, what did you want me to do there? Come on.
I can just imagine somebody listening to your podcast. Oh, he knows I watched it.
I wonder if we have an Albert.
Albert, number one fan. All right.
I rented and watched The Green Knight. The internet's aflame about this movie because it's kind of an artsy movie. And it's not 100% faithful to the original story. And the original story is actually just a really short poem, and it's actually kind of neat, like chivalry and all that. And they took some artistic liberty with Arthurian tales.
Yeah, it's about Gawain, right?
Right. And it's funny. There's all these people that are going, I wish somebody would have told me he was his nephew because I didn't understand why he was that. It's like, no, he said my daughter's son in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, no, paying attention to movies is hard for people these days.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy would probably roll his eyes but appreciate the cinematography. I think, Troy, you would love the artistic value of this movie. I found myself enjoying it a lot. I didn't like that there's a little bit of a departure from the original story, which kind of jabs at the chivalry part, which I didn't quite like. But besides that, beautiful. It definitely puts... It's the reason I'm raving about it is because it's one of those stories that it makes the audience do some work, and you've got to pay attention. There's not a lot of dialogue, and they're going, hey, I think the audience is smart enough to follow along and get the emotions and the stuff without constantly narration or go, oh, I'm so hungry. There's none of that. It's very much a knight's quest through the depths, and it was really good.
A24, man, they I don't know where they came from, but I've seen both The Lighthouse now and Uncut Gems, and neither of those movies I ever want to see again, but they are experiences. Uncut Gems has like 6 people in a room all yelling in 3 different conversations at the same time, and like that's a no-no for movies, right? Movies are like, here's character talking, switch camera to the next character talking, follow along. This is like very realistic. Everyone in a room is arguing. This guy's arguing over here, and then he switches to this conversation. You have to follow that. It's very frantic, and it was a great movie. When I was stressed watching it just from watching people have conversations. So they do some crazy stuff with that movie studio.
Yeah, I would definitely give this like an 8 out of 10. Like it's pretty good. But I don't think Jeremy would like it much.
Good to know.
And my name is Troy, and I'm your crazy taxi. Now, see, no one's gonna get that reference.
Is that the game?
Yeah, that'd be the game Crazy Taxi.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you got one person that got it.
For Sega Dreamcast, the most famous console of all time. Anyway, yeah, my name is Troy.
Right above Nintendo VR.
I want to talk about. I've been really digging the Marvel What If cartoon. The first episode, so it's basically just, hey, what if one thing changed in this timeline, so this timeline goes off in a different direction. The first one was not really a good selling point for it, because it's, hey, what if Peggy Carter became Captain America? And the animation is awesome, and the story is nice, but it's really just kind of a replay of the first movie. There's no butterfly flapping its wings chaos theory really working into it. There's some different stuff, but it mostly feels very similar to the Captain America movie. Then the next one you have Black Panther becoming Star-Lord instead. And like that just ripples across the galaxy and everything's different, and seeing all the different combinations of characters, and you now, oh, I'm a teammate instead of an enemy, blah, 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 all this stuff moved around. I just watched the Zombies one, and to see like Peter Parker working with Wasp from Ant-Man, and it's just, hey, that's a character combination we've never gotten to see, we'll never probably get to see in the MCU, so it's fun that they get to play with that and let that chaos unfold by changing one little thing. It's been really fun. Just as this doesn't matter, it's not lore, I don't have to like worry about anything, but it's enjoyable. So that's what I've been watching. Also, so I finished the Rick and Morty season 5,
me too.
and honestly, Jeremy, I feel like Rick and Morty is externalizing our constant argument about plot logic versus just doing cool stuff. Where they're like, we're fine, we'll do plot logic. Whatever, you guys are so stupid for wanting plot logic. Like Rick is literally like, we did lore, now everyone shut up about it. Like, am I not supposed to care about the lore? Should I feel bad that I cared about Evil Morty? I'm very confused what you want me to feel, TV show.
Yep.
So yeah, that's been fun. All right, we need to talk about Odd Taxi. Let's just go to non-spoiler reviews so people know why you guys are hesitating so much to get into Odd Taxi. Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and go first? What did you think of Odd Taxi?
It's definitely not my cup of tea. There's things that I think are entertaining and enjoyable, and I definitely like what they did with the big twist. Overall, I think it's got a great idea, but it just has so much going on that it's hard to grasp a hold of some kind of motivating central plot line to really draw you through it. It feels a little bit lost to me, kind of bogged down by so much activity and so many characters, all of which seem to be similarly depressed, miserable, negative. There's not a lot of like positivity in this anime, and that's really what I enjoy in my shows, is I like to have at least a balance of positivity with the negative. And so yeah, it's, I don't know, but it's getting an 8.8 on my anime list. I checked before the podcast, so clearly everybody disagrees with me, and that's great. I like that. So you'll probably enjoy it. if you're listening, but you might not.
I mean, you like the comic artists, so everyone has their taste.
Yeah.
All right, Jason,
What did
what did you think of Odd Taxi, Jason?
I thought it was okay. It's got a lot of story threads that you're wondering, they tie them in nicely, and it's not like they don't make sense, but you're wondering, why is this character here, or why is this character making this decision? It's and also like the perspective of the main character and his twist at the end just kind of, I'm just asking myself, like, why did we decide to go this way? But anyways, it was engaging. It wasn't really funny, but I mean, it was interesting. I think, as I was saying in the pre-show, I really like a How Catch 'Em, and this is more of a Who Done It. And if you end up spending too much time looking for clues instead of paying attention to character development, it can kind of be distracting. So, but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Especially with dialogue coming at you this fast.
Oh. Or when it's rapping.
Yes.
All right, so I am the odd man out on this podcast because I walked into this subject, but I also picked it kind of knowing it was gonna be my jam. This was my pick, and I watched the first episode, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna love this. I love a good mystery. I love a mystery that drip feeds you clues, and there's very much a slow feed of puzzle pieces of like, hey, you don't get to know what this is about until we're about halfway through. Things are happening, things are moving, but you don't see them all yet. That's my jam. I've seen people compare it to Tarantino films, and I definitely got a Pulp Fiction vibe with all the different storylines crisscrossing over each other. I think it's a little more pointed because there is a main character that we go through, and I think it's actually really creative to make a taxi driver someone who would constantly be encountering new characters as the central character, so that they can do that and still have a central theme. But compared to most anime we watch, Jeremy's very much right. There's a lot crisscrossing and going on, and there's not a lot of central focus compared to normal. But I guess I just really enjoyed having an original story that wasn't superpowers or magic or robots, the usual anime stuff. And while I love that stuff, I do find it very refreshing to have not that stuff, but you still need the anime or animated format to tell a good story. And this does need an animated format. This is one I would recommend to non-anime watchers as a good jumping on. You have to get them past the animal, though. Again, that's always going to be a hard part. It's about a walrus who drives a taxi. If you can somehow sell them past that, I think the average viewer would like this story. I think it's a good story with developed characters, complex characters, maybe not happy characters. I think I can agree with that. But I do think they're complex and well written. And
it's no B-stars.
No, definitely not.
We'll mention B-stars in the deeper parts because I just had some thoughts about the comparisons between the two. All right. So that is our non-spoiler section. Now we're going to our spoiler section, and we're probably, like, there's already been mentioned there's a twist. There's also a murder mystery. There's a lot going on in this anime, and it's probably going to have to be spoiled pretty soon for us to talk in depth about characters and stuff. So heavy spoiler warning right now. Just so you know, and based on what we've all said, you got to decide for yourself if you want to watch it. Trust me, you want to watch it.
Maybe.
If you're the kind of person who likes Pulp Fiction, go watch it. If not, then maybe not. Maybe because I know, Jeremy, you said you didn't like.
I don't like.
Not a fan of it. And I hadn't seen Pulp Fiction until recently, and I was like, oh, I ended up really liking the way everything crisscrossed. Anyway,
I should clarify. I haven't actually watched it all the way through. I kept trying to.
It just doesn't hook you.
You gotta stab her 3 times.
Wait, so Jason, did you like Pulp Fiction?
I did. I liked it a lot.
Okay, well, that's interesting. All right, let's go forward then. Spoiler warning has been dropped. So yeah, this is an anime about a walrus who drives a taxi usually at night in Tokyo. I think one of the things that, in my opinion, I feel like the city of Tokyo's nightlife is it's a character in itself, and kind of is what is the tying theme between all this. So like why they're all so sad, why we're kind of getting an exam of who's the kind of people who are out in the middle of the night on Tokyo and jumping into cabs. I do think that's an element of this show that might not have been picked up on.
I'm not proud to say this, but for like the first 7 episodes, I was getting upset at characters that kept getting out of the taxi and walking away without closing the door. And I'm like, these people are so rude. And then I see the little sticker that says auto door. I was like,
automated door.
oh.
To be fair, I didn't see that sticker till the final episode. when it opened on its own, and I was like, oh, it's an automated door. I didn't get that this whole time.
These people are so rude.
So to talk about the main character, we need to talk about.
Well, what about the OP and ED?
Oh yeah, we need to talk about that. Yeah, it's usually before spoiler warning. Yeah, what do you guys think? Well, actually, it's probably good that it's in the spoiler section this time, because the OP has almost all the clues you need to solve the mysteries, except for maybe the murderer. What do you guys think of the OP and the ED?
I really liked it. Not a top 10 song list, but I normally don't like that kind of almost crayon drawing style of art. But they did a really good job because they didn't do too much morphing with it. Like they do a little bit, but it was clear and they were giving the point instead of it being this splashy, like trying to make it beautiful. And it matched the music very well. The ending was meh.
I definitely got the vibes of I can't remember the name of it right now, but that anime we watched where everybody was dancing in the outro. Come on, it was very well known, very popular anime. I can't remember.
Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yes, I got vibes of Jujutsu Kaisen's outro, big time in the intro, especially because there's like a little dancing sequence where a couple of characters show up and they do that. But yeah, other than that, it just. I watched it the first couple times, then skipped it every other time. It was very mellow. Everything was so mellow. And yeah, so I didn't want any more mellow.
I absolutely love the OP. The ED, I actually found it a little too upbeat for some of the somber cliffhangers we were ending on. And so there was a couple times I was like, I don't think this fits, and I'm okay with skipping this time. So I
like one priority.
The OP, no skipping ever allowed. That I think this is a great OP, and I think it is a very mellow tone. But again, this is a story about midnight in Tokyo. Man, when you're in the city in the dark of the night, and it's like a dead city. It's just there's still people, but it's like half of what it's supposed to be, right? You just feel like you're in a different world, and I feel that music really fit that vibe.
Is that true though? Like I remember him picking people up during the day a lot. This anime wasn't specifically during the night, was it? Did I miss that?
I'd say more than half of it when it was doing like traveling and dialogue stuff felt like it was at night.
And he did do some taxi driving during the day, but it was a lot at night. And they even explain he enjoys driving at night more. There's reason for that.
But he starts at the beginning by saying that he can't even see at night.
Yeah,
it's kind of night blindness.
That is also true. Well, kind of. That's why everything's blurry.
yeah. There's a reason for this.
Yeah. So I love the OP, and again, the visual clues to the mysteries, things that are like, oh, that's a metaphor. Oh no, it's not. That's literal. That was really good, and like I said, I used the OP for a lot of the things I was able to figure out, and there's stuff I didn't figure out, but I got to figure out a lot, and I enjoyed that. So now can we talk about the big twist?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, which
Already
one?
to episode 13.
Well, I think the big twist, at least to talk about Arakawa, our main character, the walrus, is we have to know that he's got a problem. And the big twist of the show is that the animals are not animals. They're all people, and he has a mental condition that causes him to see everyone as animals, including himself as a walrus. And so again, I picked up on there's something wrong in the first episode, and that was my main thought. But I was also wondering, like, do people turn themselves into animals in this world? Is this post-apocalyptic? But we'll talk about it. Anyway, that's the twist. Your guys' thoughts on the twist and Odokawa, the character?
I'm unsure how it served the story. It was an interesting twist. I kind of saw it coming because when you have a bunch of anthropomorphic animals and also have pets that look like them, I'm going, oh, there's something going on. And I had similar thoughts to you, Troy, where it was like, are they being turned into this? Are there humans elsewhere? I didn't catch on that it was a mental disorder, but something was off. But again, I'm trying to see, like, is it just a character quirk, or does it serve the story in any particular way? Like that's what I'm confused about.
And thoughts on the main character?
I thought he was all right as to serve as a driving force for the story. I thought that I liked his superpower of being able to remember or like spot out people in a crowd and like being able to remember people. I thought that was neat. But I also
But you just said you didn't know what that served the story.
That the only reason he could do it was because he visualized them as animals.
That's the connection?
Yeah.
Well, there's
the connection.
There is more to the animal thing, I think, from a storytelling perspective. But
yeah,
yes, that's how his superpower works. Because he looks at a person and he sees a monkey, so he's able to say from just a silhouette, "Oh, that's my friend who's a monkey. He's the only monkey I know."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
spot people by their characteristics, but whatever.
That's how he could tell from a silhouette. He's like, oh, he's got that monkey hair thing that comes up really high.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You say that like it's a bad thing. I thought it was clever as hell.
No, I did not find it clever. But that's my taste. But he is, he's a depressed individual. He lost both his parents. He was just kind of that flat personality, but he always was coming up with these really elaborate plans in order to save his friends. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but also like, I don't know, seemed out of the ordinary for someone of his archetype, if you will. It's a little hard to explain, but I guess he was all right as a driving force for the story.
As far as the big twist goes, the first thing that kind of clued me in that something was really wrong didn't happen in the first episode for me. It happened with the animals, and then followed up very quickly with, wait a minute, that baboon has a cat for a daughter? I'm really confused. Like, what are the rules? And I was thinking a little bit later, a couple episodes later, so it was probably more than halfway through it, I was thinking, I think I would enjoy this anime more if they weren't animals. If they didn't try to put this veneer over it of these animals, and they were actually people. And then it kind of, when the big twist happened and we see that they are in fact people, I was like, I kind of would have preferred this from the beginning. I think I would have liked it more, which I wouldn't have expected. I think if you just floated the idea to me, I'd have been all in for it. Like, yeah, make them animals. This would be crazy, and it'd be his disorder and whatnot. But having in the last episode, in episode 13, where they deliberately went through and give you like a couple of seconds for most characters to look at each character, so you'd be like, yeah, this is what they looked like as a human. I was totally on board for that, because that's exactly what I wanted. I was like, show me how you changed the art from the human to the animal with these, and why you chose to make them the characters they were. I loved that.
Tabu's probably the best.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much like the baboon. It was great. But in that way, for that reason, I kind of agree with you, Jason, that it felt like they were trying to force that, and it didn't necessarily contribute enough for it to, overlay the entire season and give this false sense of what you were watching. I did like the sort of filtered background where everything looked kind of papered and crunched, because that fit in too with his disorder of not being able to recognize the things he was looking at. And so having that disappear at the end was really cool as well. But yeah, for the weight that it had on the anime, I can't say I actually liked it. I just really like the concept of it. And then as far as the character himself, yeah, he's so drab and boring and negative, and he's kind of a jerk sometimes. Like, there's opportunities where he could show a bit of compassion or a bit of humanity, and he doesn't. And I recognize they're trying to be consistent with the character disorder and whatnot, but he's also super quick and witty, and he's right there on the ball during conversations, especially with the llama lady. And he is just, I mean, he's eloquent, and it's shocking to me because it doesn't seem to fit his character very well. If he has such a hard time interacting with people, even with the animal people, because even though he can look them in the eye, he doesn't want to. He tries to avoid it as much as possible. Yet when he does, he's just bam, 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 bam. And so, yeah, I just don't find him to be a very pleasant character to be around. And for that reason, he did not really serve as a good story motivator for me, because I kind of wanted to move on to other characters if there was maybe going to be one that would be more pleasant.
For the twist, I'm a big fan of how they used it. I think making people animals gives the storytellers a shorthand for character descriptions. I have a big brawny doctor, we'll make him a gorilla, and then you as a viewer automatically attribute some gorilla attributes to him. Same with like a baboon. Okay, so he's going to be temperamental, he's going to be fiery. Oh, this guy's a porcupine, he's prickly, he's tough to deal with. I think that helps the story, especially when you have so many characters, that you create this shorthand and then also put it into your lore, because in an anime you can just do animal people and everyone will just be like, okay, animal people. I've watched Beastars. I could be on board with that. But then you also make it part of the story, a twist in the story. I think that was clever.
I think what kind of like gnaws at me is in situations where Arakawa is not even in the picture, or if it's even a side story where he doesn't even show up, everyone's still animals. I thought this was his disease, not the audience disease.
Yeah, especially in episode 4 when we see everything from Skullface's point of view and his whole history. That's all done by. And I watched a couple. It was one of the things that was keeping me from being 100% sure, because I watched a couple of those backstories and I was like, "Are those humans in the background? No, they're still animals." Huh. Okay, yeah. But I guess in my head I decided this must all be like being told from Arakawa, because everything's through his lens, whether he's the one focused on the story or not.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right.
No, I get that. Yeah, I think that was just one thing. But
I like how you described it as being a shorthand for the characters, except that it was superficial. Like, the characters may have expressed some of those qualities, but if so, it would be because they were written up as a shorthand to look that way, right? Because each one of the characters was only considered a porcupine because they aesthetically looked like a porcupine or a bear or a gorilla or all these others. It had nothing to do with their behavior or actions. So the writers actually had to make the decision to not only make them look like the animal, but then also force the qualities of the animal on them, because there shouldn't be a correlation between the two.
Yeah, I guess I took it more that it's not just superficial, because he did say, like, I can see auras. That's how he was explaining it without having to fully explain it. Mm-hmm. So it did seem like he mentioned, like, I have to kind of get the sense of someone. But I noticed even pictures on the walls, if there's a face, he still assigned animals to them. Whereas I think, like, street signs with, like, Walking Man were done in human shape. That was one of the clues I thought I noticed. The one that really tipped me off was you listen to the radio and the comedy duo is called the Homo sapiens. And
Sapiens.
Wait, so humans are a thing? Then where are the humans? And then in this first episode, they show a quick. It's like a 1-second flashback, and it's like that child looked very human in human form to me. and then I started noticing a lot of stuff. There was one I didn't notice. Dabu has in his apartment a painting of boars, or not boars, baboons. And I'm like, wait, why would you have the animal version of yourself as a painting?
Yeah.
And then no one describes each other as animals. That was my thought about Beastars. In every conversation, in every scene in Beastars, the fact that we are different animals hangs over everything. Even if they're talking about doing laundry, they're like, but I'm a dog who's doing laundry and you're a cat who's doing laundry, so our laundry's different. It permeates the whole thing, which I love. That, and not that I expected this to do that to that level, but it never shows up at all. No one ever mentions Goriki is super strong. No one ever talks about, the porcupine, like he bumps him and he never says, oh, I gotta watch out for those quills. Like no one ever mentions an animal attribute. I'm like, these can't be animals. These aren't animals.
Yeah, it just felt shallow to me when they didn't do that at first. Later it made sense, but initially it was just like, wow, this is a really shallow interpretation of animals. Give me back my Beastars.
All right, let's keep going in the. Oh, Anadakawa. I love Adakawa as a character. He is the main character. Especially when we got the backstory, I think that really cemented how much I liked him. He has a huge arc, but we just don't know really where the arc started till the end. But just coming from that place of he just doesn't like himself, and he's just decided he doesn't like anything else either, and so he's kind of a smart aleck to everyone, and a bit of a jerk. But he comes to appreciate himself. I really like the love story that develops in here, and now at the end he's still super shy about it. I like the character. But all right, we need to go into the story proper. First scene is a body being dumped into the water, tied down with bricks. That's the first thing we see. Then we see our main character. He's driving at night in the city, and he picks up a hippo whose name is Taichi. This guy. They have a conversation about social media. He's a college student. I gotta get big on social media. That's his big thing. And he's like, take a selfie with me, taxi driver. And of course, Arakawa's like, this is dumb. Social media is dumb. But he takes the selfie. And then they talk about the gangster Dabu, who ends up in the background of the selfie randomly when they take it. And this when he drops off this college guy, he forgets his phone, and that's when he sees that this selfie is actually blowing up, but because of the criminal in the background, not because of the taxi driver in the selfie. And we find out about the missing cat girl. So this is the central mystery of the story. A famous comedian. I think it's the baboon.
Yeah, he's a famous comedian.
He's a famous comedian.
Right, because he's one of the judges of the yeah.
Yeah, so this famous comedian baboon, his cat daughter is missing. We don't find out he's a baboon or that they're the ones connected till later. But yeah, that was also another thing that Jeremy I noticed. I was like, oh, there's another clue. I see that one. Yeah. We also see Adakawa go home to his apartment, and he talks to someone who we don't get to see in the apartment. This is the third mystery, who's the mysterious stranger in Arakawa's apartment. This is also explicitly told to us in the OP, but you just think it's a metaphor for missing cat girl. What are you guys' thoughts on, because it's a cat. I love the idea that he isn't sure it's a cat. That he's like, I might have abducted someone, or I might be taking care of a stray cat, and I'm not 100% sure which.
Yep. So when I first saw him talking to something in that back room, I was thinking, okay, I'm really curious about this. Where's this gonna go? But it popped up so rarely. Like the thread of the murder and the thread of like trying to figure out who done it, and whether or not he was even involved, kind of really takes a back seat to everything else. And so it almost feels like it's not that important. And so finding out in the end that it was just a cat kind of, to me, just cemented even more that like, yeah, this was another thread that really didn't contribute anything except like tiny red herring for you, just a little tiny one, and that's it.
It is a red herring, but I did
Yeah.
like the payoff. The payoff made me laugh. After he talks to her, then he goes to visit his friend and doctor Goriki, who's a giant gorilla, at his clinic, and he's being treated for insomnia. And there's also a nurse who we'll talk about in a little bit that's there, and she has a eraser of that famous comedian baboon, one of a kind, and she gives it to Arakawa to have, which becomes important later. And I'd completely forgotten about it. And when it showed back up in the story, I was like, oh, okay.
So was the eraser actually shaped like a baboon in the real world, or do you think the eraser was a human?
A human.
Yeah, it had to be a human. So he's even forcing the baboon shape onto an inanimate object.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, because he does, like I said, he does it to pictures and magazines. Like anytime he sees
Yeah,
a
that's
face
true.
on anything else, he does it. Then he goes and eats at his favorite diner with the kangaroo lady who runs it, and his best friend, EG, who is a monkey / custodian. Guys, thoughts on EG, who not great with finance.
EG is the worst. I couldn't stand watching this pathetic loser continually make terrible choices.
Yeah.
And it was really rough to watch. I just did not like it whenever he was in a scene. But he's Sadakawa's best friend, or at least it seemed that way.
They went to school together.
That's right. But yeah, it was rough to watch EG just kind of spiral out of control. But I mean, that's fairly realistic. I mean, that does happen to people.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I have to add is that it just seemed like he was one of so many characters that just, in one way or another, were absolutely miserable and negative. And yeah, I really couldn't stand EG.
I actually mostly agree. Like, he is a pathetic character, so I don't find him super appealing. I did definitely feel bad for him when he hit the rock bottom point of his story. And I'll say I just really appreciate that at the end they're like, "Oh, you're gonna bail EG out," and he's like, "No, he has to fix that himself." Like, he's made him take responsibility and recognize that what he did was dumb, pathetic, and the only way he'll learn is if he's not bailed out from it. Otherwise, I was actually kind of surprised there wasn't more resolution to EG's story. He just, after his big event, he just kind of goes off into the background and waits for the story at the end and is just there.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the only resolution we get is that one line of like, no, I'm not giving EG the money. He's got to help himself.
Yeah, and then we see him like shoveling as a human in the last episode. Was he
Right.
in a prison or something?
No, but it just showed he had to go back to menial,
Instead of being a part-time janitor, he would be a part-time janitor plus a part-time
right
hitch digger.
Yeah. Either he
It
got
looked like he was on a construction site, so
Yeah, maybe
like
he just
a
switched.
start of a building.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, one thing to know about EG is he loves his dating app, and he is destined to find love. That's really where all his problems come from. He wants to find love. They talk in there, and then Goriki is there with them, and he gets a phone call that medicine is being stolen from the clinic, and then Odakawa gives the nurse the ride home, and I missed the cops. So the two cops had pulled him over. They're called Big Damon and Little Damon. They're twin brothers who look like dogs. One is a corrupt cop and one is an idiot. And your guys' thoughts on the Damon brothers?
I actually like the little brother's sense of justice and retribution for evil. That a little naive as it was, I think he obviously was in the right profession. And yeah, watching corrupt cops, especially in these kind of mystery movies, just kind of eats at me. So watching Big Damon was a little frustrating as well.
Yeah. Same here. Although I do want to say that like out of all the characters, I liked what they contributed to the story enough to where it offset my distaste for the for the how miserable Big Damon made everything, and how, you know, he was clearly another character that was just miserable with himself and miserable with everybody else. Never crack a smile. Nothing's ever happy. Nothing's ever good. But it at least, you know, it moved the story forward and contributed something meaningful to it.
Hey, guess what? I like both these characters. Little Damon I thought was funny, and the fact that like he has his own twin humor that he makes to himself and no one else cares. They even point out like that's not funny to anyone but you, and he loves it. And he's sitting there busting chops and just loving his life. And Big Damon, I wasn't sure about, but I liked the motivation in the end. I like that they gave him an actual motivation. He wasn't just I'm evil cop to be evil, or I'm dirty cop to be dirty. There was a reason for him choosing to help these mobsters. As much as you disagree with it or not, I just like that they gave him a proper motivation for choosing that, which made him. I think the characters are well fleshed out and layered, because you know he did want to be a cop. He was very similar to his younger brother, Little Damon, but has this reason now to become corrupt and just got in deeper and deeper, which is kind of a theme.
Yeah.
For a lot of these characters.
It's like each character is a symbol of one or another form of like abuse, self-abuse, right? Mm-hmm. Like, or addiction or spiraling.
Yeah. You know, I told you before we recorded that I laughed a lot at this, but yeah, this is a dark, heavy, mature story, you know, at its core. And speaking of getting too deep, let's talk about the nurse, Miho Shirakawa, who is a llama.
Right.
Which I totally don't see her being a llama. Like, she's the one human when you see her in episode 13 where I'm like, I don't see it, man. I'm sorry.
When you stretch out the neck, it makes it hard to.
Right, exactly.
You're right.
And he's like, you're pretty. I'm like, okay, so yeah, you never even saw her. You just made up something.
What are you guys' thoughts on Shirakawa?
As far as layered characters, I thought, you know, a girl that gets involved in with the wrong people and becomes trapped because of threats of violence and ends up doing stuff to try and, you know, get out of a situation. I thought they did a really good job with this character as far as not wanting to pitch her into the rest of the characters that I don't like in this anime. Yeah, and also a llama doing capoeira just made my day.
I agree with all that, and I actually liked her as a character. I thought she was fine. But one criticism I have is you cannot break a car window from outside underwater without leverage. You can't kick it underwater without leverage. And I'm so glad they didn't show us. They just said, oh yeah, she's doing that kick she loves to do underwater, and then look, she's got him, so it clearly succeeded. But she did break her. So bad.
You're right, but she did break her foot. I at least appreciated they added that.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
When she's in the hospital room with him, she has a cast on her right foot.
And there's a crutch leaning up against the cabinet.
I absolutely ship it. I was a little disappointed that there's not a lot of tropes in this, but this was actually not even an anime trope, but it is kind of tropey. I had a boyfriend, he was a bad boyfriend, and I fell in deep. But the anime also goes out of its way to criticize her for that and saying, like, well, she had opportunities. She made bad choices. She could have gotten away from him. She tells herself she couldn't have, and she was stuck with him, but that can't be the full truth. And that I appreciated. It's just, it's a little old hat to be like, oh, I was the girlfriend of this horrible, horrible person and couldn't figure out he was horrible, horrible. And then he started extorting me for drugs, and I was still like, oh my God, why am I dating him? Okay, that's a little bit of a tired trope. That's probably my one big complaint about that, was her character came from this tired trope. But again, they addressed it, and she was so sweet to Arakawa, especially when it became genuine. And her martial arts, I won't be able to say the word. I can't I can't remember.
Maybe that's why I liked her more than the others, is because she ended up having a real arc. Like, EG doesn't really have much of an arc. Like, yeah, he regrets doing what he did, but I'm unsure if he's a better person at the end.
I mean, he even went down and got the ring, which obviously for financial reasons it was a good decision. But was it in any sort of emotional connection? If so, then
when he threw it though, I was like, "Sell it, you idiot!"
Yeah,
exactly. I know. I was screaming at him too. I was like, "Why are you throwing it over the bridge?" Like a lot of the characters, I didn't feel they had significantly changed by the end of the story. I mean, obviously, our big bad guys had that zero change.
Even Skullface,
but
his change was
she had a very clearly defined arc, and she was definitely a good person at the end. She has some scars to show for it. But that's the reason I liked her a lot.
So the next episode starts with Arakawa telling EG about when he drove the nurse and they hung out in the park. And I don't think they hung out in the park yet, but they spent time together. And she asked him, like, "Do you like anyone?" "I like someone. He's in that mirror. It's you." Oh no, her move is smooth. She's like, "Yeah, here's a picture of the guy I like," and it's him. Also, that's another clue because he sees himself and he's like, I'm a walrus."
Yeah.
But yeah. EG then he gets a little desperate and he changes his salary on the dating app because he just has a normal low wage salary and he changes it to a high wage salary and he gets a hit from this
an 18-year-old.
Yeah, an 18-year-old girl, which
and he's 40.
Yes.
He loves it. He's very excited. And then we meet up with Mystery Kiss. And we start with the character Imue, who I didn't write down to talk about because I don't really feel he had everyone I put on there I feel has an arc at least in some way or another.
Talking about the fox?
This is the skunk who wins the lottery.
Oh, the skunk. Yeah, okay.
So he's a big fanboy of this girl band. He is an important character to the story. He just kind of also is there to serve the story, some more so than he ever goes through any changes. He's exactly the same at the end, even still. Well, I got to meet with the other groups of the fan club and see how we're going to take all this bad news. And he doesn't change at all. Even though I did like him as a character. He visits with his favorite idol band, which is a new up and coming group called Mystery Kiss. And in it is the lead singer, Rui the poodle, and then two cats who are forced to wear masks by the manager. There's Ichimura, the calico cat, who also was the girl on the dating app, and Yuki, the black cat, who looks very familiar to people. Your guys' thoughts on Mystery Kiss, and if we want to spoil the other twist here, we can too.
Yeah. So the fanboy skunk, I thought he was, I couldn't stand him. And then Mystery Kiss,
sweet boy,
dude, he's. Idolizing a band like that beyond belief to where it consumes your life. I've just never understood that kind of fandom. It grates on me. But anyways,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, owning paraphernalia and planning to spend a lot of money,
millions of yen.
Yeah. I think there's a little different. But yeah, it's a Mystery Kiss. I thought they were fine through half the anime, and then half the anime I was like, oh, these are terrible people as well. I can't stand any of them.
Yeah.
So specifically the poodle. I did find the Yuki that everyone thinks they see her somewhere else. I found her interesting. I'd like to learn more about that particular character, but in a villain sense, but we don't get that. So
I just want to point out to our audience members, I wrote down the names of all the characters in the show notes tonight. They are choosing to just call them Poodle and Black Cat. They're not paying attention.
Well, I really want to maximize the potential of the animal appearances of these characters.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think of Mystery Kiss?
I thought it was cute. It felt very baby metal to me, and the whole time that they were going through all of their like dance preparation, and then they'd get up there to do their idols, they even got the masks on and stuff. I'm like, man, this is baby metal. This is cool. And then it turns out there's like a murderer in the ranks and all this dark stuff going on. I'm like, this is not baby metal. Don't tell me that. So, yeah, it was fine. Everything they did with the characters really fit the tone of the anime. And they all turned into miserable, horrible little cretins, just like every other character. But at least they're consistent. Everybody's equally horrible. So
Take what Jeremy just said for me, but put a positive spin on it. Like,
okay,
put it in the plus column rather than the negative column. I guess that I know it's a taste difference, but yeah, I found it a whole anime of characters who all have their own sins and quirks and stuff that basically push them into these bad situations and then twisting into each other to create this complex story. Fun to watch, but you took again the negativity, not having any positive balance. I get that.
It's just the overwhelming nature of it. Like if they had a handful of characters, or even just like 2 or 3 that were on the other side of the pendulum, then I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. These characters are like this, and these characters are like this. But when they're all in the same direction, the pendulum, oh man, that just kills me.
I think Gariki is the only like good guy, and Little Damien.
Yeah,
little Damien.
But I think that's Jeremy. You said something interesting that really
Diamond
stood out to me. I think this is probably one of the reasons I'm having a tough time with this world building. Is we are watching a society that's devoid of principles and values.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone keeps making decisions that lead them to worse decisions that lead them to worse decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fun to watch for me, I think, is probably what the issue is for me.
Yeah. It's because you can see it and predict what's going to happen, and you're like, this is going to be painful. Why are you choosing to do this? I would never make this choice. Why are you making me endure the consequences of this choice over and over?
All right. So yeah, we meet that group and their manager's name is Yamamoto. Yeah, Yamamoto. He's a corgi, I think. He's a yellow dog.
Corgi I've ever seen.
Wait, is this the big? I thought he was a fox.
Maybe he's a fox. He could be.
Yeah,
he's just
I'm
a
not
big
sure.
yellow pointy ears, very
He's got
canine
those-
stout, but that
Yeah.
fits a fox. So he's either a fox or a dog. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then this fanboy gets in the cab with Otokawa, and he tells him all about the idol group, and he doesn't have any money. And then he asks for lottery ticket numbers, and so Otokawa just makes up a bunch and tells him, and then he leaves to go buy the ticket. He's like, "Wait, that means you have money."
Yeah.
And then Otokawa meets up with, he gets a text from Miho to meet up with her, Shirakawa. But on his way, first he gets the 2 radio guys, the Homo sapiens, come into his cab. Now he listens to them all the time on the radio. They're going through this comedy competition right now. They have their own subplot through this whole thing that doesn't really weigh in heavily. They're kind of the comedy balance I think they tried. We had a discussion in pre-show that the jokes didn't really land with us with their skits. I think it's a cultural thing. I think in Japan these jokes are very funny, but they don't work on American audiences because I didn't fully get them.
Yeah. Yeah, they even used a particular name for a type of comedy that it is, and it just seemed like it was overflowing reactions and flooding like interruptions and just like a constant flow of information to batter you and conflict. And yeah, it just doesn't work for me.
Right. But the recurring theme of these characters does show up in this cab ride because they're talking about their competition and they made it to the second round, and they don't really see eye to eye on what is funny and what jokes they should be doing. And then the horse, whose name is Baba, the straight man of the group gets a call and he's like, "Oh, I got that TV gig." He's like, "Great, we got the TV gig." He's like, "No, I got the TV gig." And that's just the theme of Baba's star keeps rising while the boar guy keeps trying to make jokes that aren't really that popular and that funny. Because his sense of humor is different from he's like, everyone's sense of humor is wrong. They should laugh at my stuff.
He's basically
Well,
me.
What's also interesting about the two is the horse who's rising to stardom. He doesn't really care all that much, but his partner really, really cares, and he keeps going further and further down.
Right. So after they get out, Dabu gets in. This is the baboon, the criminal that's wanted right now, and he pulls a gun on Arakawa. So now it's time to talk about him. What do you guys think of Dabu?
I found it interesting that because guns are very rare in Japan, unless you're in the police or military, and so for him to have one is actually a pretty big deal. But as far as the bad guys, he was probably the most sympathetic. I actually didn't mind watching Dabu because who he was is who he was, and he was a bad guy, but he didn't want to do horrendously bad things, but he was willing to do what he had to do to get the job done for his boss. And you know, he was witty. He was he wasn't. It wasn't terrible to listen to his dialogue, especially between him and Arakawa. So yeah, I kind of liked Dabu.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. He had his own moral compass that he was using to, maybe nobody else followed it, but he had rules that he wouldn't break. There were times when he justifiably, I think, given the type of person that he was showing himself to be, not necessarily justifiable according to my ethics or morals, but according to what he had displayed, justifiably, I expected him to beat the crap out of somebody or to even kill them, and he didn't. And I thought, wow, this is almost out of character because he's being so generous in letting these people walk away with their lives. I never saw that coming from him. And in some cases, like there was one situation where he actually helped the person. He basically gave them a psychology session, helping them get over their own trauma. And this was a person who had come after him and tried to use him for that person's own advantage. We'll get into them later, I'm sure. But so yeah, sympathetic is exactly the term that I would use for him. I liked Dabu, which is weird. Like, why is it that of all the characters in this, the two characters, because I also like the other Yakuza guy, the two characters that are the bad guys are the ones that I actually enjoyed because they weren't miserable. Like, they had accepted what was going on in their life. They had decided to be positive about it. Yeah, they did some horrible things, but they just didn't have this overwhelming sense of self-hatred. Plus, how bad can somebody be if they're like number one in Farmville, right?
I think what it comes down to is they had their own brand of justice, but Giano's justice was much less than what Dabu had.
Right.
I think Dabu was a more stand-up guy than Giano.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were confident. They followed their own code of ethics, and I think that's probably why they were easier to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially interesting because we find out later he's not allowed to kill. He's not a killer, but he needs everyone to think he is for his work to go off successfully. Yeah. So he's constantly like, "I'm gonna kill you. You believe me, right?" I'm gonna get you. But I agree with everything else you guys said about the fact that even though he is a villainous character and he does horrible things like force his ex-girlfriend to sell him drugs, the fact that he has his own moral code, and even the character Arakawa calls out, like, I don't think he's as bad as I thought he was. No, he is horrible though. And that's true. That's exactly how I felt. Like, oh, I like him. He needs to go to prison though. I mean, he's a horrible person. I just enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah. The next episode doesn't come right back to this scene. It starts with Iji again. He's at the sauna that him and Arakawa like to visit, and the taper guy, who we'll find out is the mob boss, sits down and starts asking him questions about the missing girl and Arakawa, and realizes, no, wait, he's on a Bluetooth. And I laughed very hard at that scene. That has happened to me. I think it's a very normal thing to happen in the real world. I felt very spot on, and I laughed very hard at that moment.
I thought he was wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt for the longest time.
Yes, so did we. We thought he was like in a weird coat or something in the sauna. It didn't make any sense. And then we realized, oh, and then once he's in human form, it's like, oh, no, that makes way more sense. You can definitely tell they're tattoos once he's a human, but on the tapir form,
Something's on the fur. Right.
Well, before then, someone said something to the effect of, "Oh, the tapir with the tattoos," and Arakawa said that.
Yeah.
The tapir with the cat tattoos. I was like, "Oh, those are tattoos."
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so basically, Arakawa is suspected, and we forgot the Damon brothers, or Diamond, actually took the camera data from the taxi and gave it to Dabu. So Dabu already has the data, and this tapir, he's looking for the missing girl. For the father is a friend of his, and so Dabu has been assigned to do it. So he gets into the cabin, he starts talking to Arakawa about it, holds him at gunpoint, and wants his help with getting information. And he explains there's a rival in the gang, and we're both tasked to raise money for the boss. That's whoever makes the most money is the best, and so we're always competing to raise money. And I've been tasked now to find this girl, and I don't want Yano getting involved. I need to know if he was involved so I can take him down. And so I need your help. And while he's doing this, Arakawa flicks the SOS button so that the taxi will wave down police officers with the sign on top, and they get pulled over. And Dabu admits, like, I'm working with Big Diamond, so if it's Big Diamond, he's gonna help me. But if it's Little Diamond, I'm gonna be in trouble. And it's Big Diamond. He shows up and he's like, "What's the problem here?" He's like, "He's got a gun on me." I don't see how that's my problem, sir.
Yeah.
It's like, turn off the SOS sign.
Yeah,
it's distracting.
Bother people.
Yeah.
And Dabu threatens his friends, and he's like, "Hey, I have that cute nurse." Again, no one ever identifies. He didn't say the cute llama. He says the cute nurse. No one ever identifies anyone by their animal type.
That's true.
And then afterwards, Dabu goes and he buries his gun in the park because, again, he's not a killer, so he doesn't need this. I do like that the amount of bullets in the gun is consistent. It's not unlimited, or more show up for a character who probably doesn't know how to get them in the first place. Especially, like Jason said, guns in Japan are kind of a bigger deal, a little more uncommon.
So did he miscount?
Yeah, they explained it.
They explain it.
But he did miscount. When he got shot in the leg, he thought that was skull mask, and it wasn't. It was.
Oh, right. Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had counted that bullet when it shouldn't have counted.
Yep.
And then Arakawa goes to meet Shirakawa. He tries to warn her off, like, the accuser are getting involved with me. You need to stay away from me. And that's when she does that. Well, I know. Help me out, guys.
Capoeira.
Capoeira. I've never heard of that.
Capoeira. I don't think it's pronounced with a T, but yeah.
Look,
I think that's just Japanese pronunciation or something.
Either way.
No. The only reason I say it that way, that's Eddie in Tekken. That was his style of fighting.
Oh, okay.
And he was my favorite character in Tekken until I learned King, and then.
Wow,
I was
a lore dump on Jason.
Really far, yeah. I was watching MMA fights between like MMA fighters and different martial artists, and capoeira kept coming up.
Okay,
surprisingly effective.
Yeah.
Anyway, this scene is hilarious because she's out there like doing her little dance, and he's like, "I don't know what you're doing. This is like an exercise." She's like, "No, I know martial arts." This was another very funny scene for me. Then he meets up with Edgy, and they talk about their recent romances, and he gets suspicious and checks the app, and figures out that he lied about it. But then Edgy decides to meet up with her, and he finally meets Ichimura, and then they're being followed by the managers because clearly an 18-year-old is not this dumb to fall for a 40-year rich guy. This is clearly a scam, and he's in some deep doo-doo.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get episode 4, which is mostly about who I was calling Gamer Cat, but Skullmask. He has a character name too, but I didn't write that down. Mostly he's referred to as Skullmask throughout the story, which is basically a guy who has addictive personality. He used in grade school. He's like, we used to collect erasers. He's like, well, that's a lie. 2 of us collected erasers, and I was.
I
losing.
did like that part of the story that he kept going, okay, no, that was a lie. That was an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Which is a really authentic way of people telling, like, they're telling, oh, in my sad story, we all collected. No, that's not true. It was just the 2 of us losers. But I wanted to be the best. Basically, he didn't have the money to ever compete with this guy in collecting erasers. His parents would always buy him erasers. So he steals his dad's credit card and bids on one on eBay, this super rare one that comes up. Because he only had one that was rare dodo. I liked how he's like, I tried to convince him bread was a rare eraser. Anyway, so he puts in this bid. He's like, it won't work anyway. And
Starts
then
at $30.
yeah, it ends up getting driven up, and he gets so desperate he ends up bidding 100,000 yen,
Which is $1,000.
Yeah.
for this eraser, and pays the money. And his dad finds him on the computer and hits him, which is the first sign that he's not having a good life. And then later, the eraser doesn't show up, and then his dad finds out about the $1,000 on the credit card bill, and he gets beaten severely by his father. So
I thought that was his brother that hit him the first time.
I thought it was his dad.
I'm unsure.
Because his brother was the one who was always playing on the computers, and he's like, my brother's going to be home, and this short little window is all I have. So I assumed...
Oh, and he's like,
It was
don't
just
touch my computer.
Yeah, I just thought it was a big brother that smacked a little brother around.
Well, the dad definitely beat him the second time.
Man, yeah. Black and bloody and blue. Yeah.
And then in his adult life, he started playing a game called Zootopia. No, that's not right, but it's been
Just almost. It's like
something.
Zooland or something.
Yeah. Again, this was my nail in the coffin. Like, okay, these are definitely not animal people, because you don't play a game with a zoo when you're an animal. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I guess, we have The Sims.
That's what my daughter said to me too, and I'm like, look, I took it as evidence. I was right. Leave me alone.
That's how it works.
No, so he plays this game, and you basically collect animals. It's loot box hell of collecting animals of the game, and he plays it for 4 years. He plays it during work. He throws all his money into it, and then he finally gets the rare animal that he's been waiting for. And he always wants to get to number 1. And
how he still has this job is just beyond me.
Right?
By the way.
Yeah.
The number 1 user has the same username as the online auction person who took his money for the eraser and never gave him the eraser. Which, by the way, that eraser is the same one currently in Arakawa's pocket. So he thinks if he gets this dodo, which is what the real eraser he had, he thinks is a sign. If I get the dodo, I'll get up to first place. He finally pulls the dodo out of the loot box. But in the last episode, Arakawa, who had been racing to get to Shirakawa for their date in the park, had accidentally almost run him over. He drops the phone into the water. When they restore the phone, the loot pull didn't go through. He doesn't have the dodo anymore. And he basically, and then his bird dies. His bird, since he's had since childhood, he goes to bury the bird in the park, and he finds the gun. And he wanders around for 3 days with the gun, and then he sees Arakawa's cab, and he's like, I have a purpose in life, and it's to kill that fat. Yeah. And he sees his license plate, and that's the end of that episode. So now we have this wild card antagonistic force out in the wild trying to hunt down Arakawa, separate from all his other troubles. Okay, any thoughts on Skull Face?
I just confused why he's in the story. I thought he was an interesting addition, but I'm not like he's a little sympathetic as far as the addiction part, but like again, he's just another one of these characters that continually makes bad decisions, and it just eats at me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I actually did appreciate his dialogue. When he's talking, he's telling the story. Oh no, that's a lie. Actually, it was this. And
Yeah.
he's upset about his bird dying, but he's like, well, I mean, my bird did live for about 15 years. I shouldn't be that surprised he died. Like, I'm trying to root for this character, but like he has a complete mental break over, collecting stuff and this addiction. I'm just like, I don't identify with it.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like these characters were more symbols of how you can get lost in something or how you can obsess over something to your own detriment, right? Because the same thing happens. Like these two characters are mirrors to each other. This one and the social media guy, albeit one is a bit more extreme, but this it seemed more of sort of a this is a message about how dangerous these things are because pick an item and there's a character that represents that sort of obsession and addiction.
I think there's also parallels with the main character. I think a lot of the characters have parallel themes about similar things, and I think they tend to be reflections of each other. Like when I saw the social media guy, he's trying to take down the bad guys, but for himself, whereas Arakawa's trying to take down the bad guys for others, and it just how there's parallels all over the place, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on.
All right.
Next episode, the band manager Yamamoto gets into the taxi, and he makes Arakawa pick up each of the band members separately. The first he picks up is Yuki, and this strikes Arakawa's odd. He's like, man, I swear I dropped off someone similar looking before. This is really similar. And something really important happens that I completely whiffed on. As many clues as I picked up on, there are a dozen more I missed. And
I know what it is. She loves fried chicken.
She does love fried chicken.
Yeah, they even showed that clues a couple more times.
And she puts her phone into the seat of the taxi. I assumed at the time, she just wants to record her band manager and see what the gossip is, see what they say about her. That is not what she's doing.
I thought she was somehow connected to Skull Mask, but that wasn't it either.
Yeah, they're not connected. All right. Then they pick up the Ichimura, the calico cat, and now again, Odakawa's like, wait, I've seen her before. I've seen a calico cat before, because he had looked at the app from EG. He'll figure that out later. And meanwhile, while he's talking with the band manager is like, oh yeah, we could use you as our personal taxi, and we could advertise with you. Hey, can I have some of that dash cam footage that you have? I could really use that dash cam footage. We could use it for promotional material. And Arakawa was like, oh crap, Dabu said someone would come asking for it, and I need to tell him when it happens. So he's like, oh, I don't think I'm allowed to do that. Of course, he didn't even have it, but this is a bad sign. And so they keep giving rides to all the girls. They pick up Rui, and then afterwards he goes home, and Gamer Cat follows him, or Skull Mask follows him to his home. He starts wearing his skull mask while he hunts down Arakawa, so that's what everyone starts calling him.
Yeah.
He visits the clinic again, and Goriki is going to be closing the clinic because of the drugs that are being stolen. He doesn't want to get the cops involved, and that doesn't really leave him a lot of other choices, so he figured he'll just close it down. And Arakawa is like, I kind of suspect that Shirakawa is the one stealing it. He's like, yeah, I get that, but let's not accuse her because she's a good person. Then he ends up in the cab with Dabu again. He asks him, are you involved with Shirakawa and the drugs? And Dabu's like, yes, I am. Why are you asking? So I had this great thing about, I want to ask you one question. And then he asked something about a stoplight. He's like, wait, that was your one question. You don't get to ask me any more questions.
A genie would know that was just a spur of the moment question, not the question.
Yeah. You would waste your wish on a genie. A genie would know. A genie would get it. But yeah, Dabu is using her to sell him drugs, so that he can make money. Again, everything is about making money for the boss. So he does tell Dabu about Yamamoto and wanting the camera. And then we see EG eating on his date at a fancy restaurant, and he's using loan money to pay for the dinner. And
Why
then
don't you have a wallet?
Yeah, he just pulls cash out. No card.
and one of the things Dabu mentioned was that he's becoming infamous around the area, and we find out the reason why is that hippo guy who wants to be on social media, Taichi, he's now making social media posts about how he's going to catch the Dabu, and he's going to be the one who makes him pay. And now everyone's talking about him, and they're starting to form like this group that's obsessed with catching him, and he's not very excited about that.
Yeah. He's liking the money.
Right? Yeah, I think this one. God, I can't stand this character so much. He's he's just one of these people online that are like, oh, I'm gonna do this such important thing. Here's my Venmo. Like,
Yeah.
He's Logan Paul,
go
right?
away.
Like personified.
I actually had that flash through my mind too as I was watching him.
And then the anime calls him out that you're a freaking narcissist and knock it off.
Yep.
Yeah, he starts skipping classes so he can do this full time. It's like, ugh.
Yep.
And hide. And
Right.
sleep. So Arakawa meets up with Ymir, the skunk guy again, and he won the lottery using the numbers he got from Arakawa. And he's like, Arakawa, I want to, give you some of the money. And Arakawa's like, I don't need money. I don't want money from people. That is not what I am about. He's like, well, then let me take you to this club. And he takes him to a cabaret because that's where he apparently works. And he's like, you're my guest here. And so the fat guy from the Homo sapiens is also there. And I thought he was a customer there. Then I realized, nope, this is his second job.
This is his second job, yeah.
The poor guy.
I did like that Arakawa sits down and they're like, what do you want to drink? And he's like, I'm working. I have to drive. I can't drink. So all the girls around him are like, we're gonna drink, yay!
Yeah.
Well, and they ask him, so they're asking the customer, do they have permission to drink? Because the customer has to pay for it, but Arakawa is not paying for it, so he has to look at it immediately like, is that okay? Are they allowed to drink? He gets to get the nod. I thought that was well done. And then Skullface shows up and he starts shooting up the place. And Arakawa's in the bathroom when it happens, and he runs out all the way to his cab, and his window's been broken. So he jumps into his cab and leaves, and the fat guy from the Homo sapiens almost gets shot by Skullface. Meanwhile, then he gets home. Arakawa goes home, and Shirakawa is waiting for him, and he texted her, I don't want to be involved with you anymore. And she's like, what's the deal with that? And she tells him the truth that this is where she confesses. Yeah, Dabu told me to get involved with you. I used to date him. I owe him money. But it's all become real, and I am in love with you, which the character is very sweet, and I did like the way they addressed it. But again, this is a very cliche,
Yeah, it is.
very old-born trope. So one of my least favorite parts of it.
I agree, but I did like that Arakawa was not like, oh, well, I guess everything's okay because I like you. He's like, no, get out of here.
Yeah.
He's like, get off my property.
Yeah.
Yeah, she confesses she loves him, and he walks out.
Yeah.
Dabu and Arakawa meet up again, and Arakawa's like, hey, we should team up. I'll deal with the Skullface, and you deal with this online hippo guy who's trying to hunt me down, and we'll work together on that whole camera footage and the missing girl. And he's like, well, okay, if you let Shirakawa out of her debt, I'll do it. And so Dabu agrees. And then we see...
I think again, that's one of the things I like about Dabu. He's not... Like, if he agrees to something, he goes through with it. He's not one of these gangsters that's like, oh, yeah, I agree. Oh, by the way, I'm going back on that. You still owe me.
Yeah.
Like, he's that's not his style. And, yeah.
The Mafia boss says it. He has very good people. Dabu's good at his job. You got to give him that at least. And
yeah,
there's a reason for it.
Honor among thieves.
We check in on Baba, who's the horse from the Homo sapiens, and he's getting even more popular. And we find out he's dating Rui, the poodle from Mystery Kiss. Yeah, that's all for that episode. Okay, so
do you ship it, Troy?
I actually so I'll be honest. I liked
Okay.
especially when she gave her backstory of how they met, and like she was so mad at him and he's such a loser, and then he kind of worms his way into her heart anyway. Yeah, I kind of do, Jeremy.
I knew you did. I knew you did.
Even though she's an evil person, she's not good enough for him. I did like the way he melted her icy heart.
Yeah. It'll have time to harden back up in prison.
In prison. Yeah. So Arakawa tries to visit with Taichi, and he finds out he's gone into hiding since he started posting videos. He's actually a giant coward and doesn't want anything to do with catching a mafia guy. Then when he goes back home to his apartment, there's a hole there. A bullet hole has been shot into his apartment. And meanwhile, Eiji is preparing to ask his girlfriend to marry him, and buys a engagement ring.
Yeah.
Money he also got for a loan.
And it seems like he got it from a different mob.
Like these just seem like regular loan sharks that aren't involved with the tapier guy, because the tapier guy is not giving out money ever except for when he's
friendly neighborhood loan shark.
Yeah, exactly.
Which they never resolved. These characters like show up once, the loan shark guys, and then they never come back, even though.
Even though there's no way he could have made enough money to pay them back by the end of the season. Yeah.
So Arakawa goes to Little Diamond and says, "Hey, come to my house. I've been attacked," and bring him into the apartment, shows him the bullet hole, and he's like, "Oh my God, you were telling the truth." And you gotta understand, the two cop brothers do not like him, especially because they do not like taxi drivers. And he asks him, why you became a cop. He's like, "Well, my parents got run over in a car accident by a taxi driver." And he's like, "Oh, that's why you hate taxi drivers." But then he tells him everything. He tells, Dabu's been coming to me. He has this evil plan. Your brother is in on it. He's like, "No, my brother can't be on it." He's like, "He is in on it, but I don't care if you believe me or not. I just need you to help me arrest Dabu, but I can't have you do it yet. I need to set this all up to catch all the bad guys and get everyone that I care about out scot-free." So he agrees and gives him his number, and so they decide they'll work together.
This is where the story really does a complete deviation from anything having to do with the solving the murder mystery. There's little breadcrumbs here and there that are dropped, but the story is all about this heist that's going to happen now, and the interlaced.
Well, yes and no. Because there's because Yano is so connected to the murder, that's also always in play too.
It's the murder's in play, but not solving the murder. Nobody seems to care about solving it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they haven't even identified that she is murdered at this point. She's just a missing person.
Yeah, she's just missing.
But you're right. Even in a little bit, at no point does he decide, "I'm going to solve the murder." He does. Yeah. He solves it, but he never through intentional deducing or anything. He just realizes, "Oh, that was the murderer. I had the murderer in my cab."
Yep.
Okay. And this is right when the body is found. That's why the brother has to leave the apartment. The body is found in the water. They haven't identified it yet, but he has to leave. EG finally goes, and he gets ready to propose marriage, and he gets abducted. Meanwhile, but by Yanu's thug, there's a polar bear with 3 scars on his face who does all the dirty work, and a tracksuit. He looks very good in though. Shirakawa confesses to Goriki what she did, even though he basically already knows, and he talks about how they're going to treat Arakawa. And again, another nail in the coffin. Okay, something's wrong with Arakawa. Could it be that he's seen everyone as animals? Yes.
Right.
So Halloween arrives, and they plan to confront Skullface at Halloween, but it turns out everyone's dressing up as Skullface, which is a really messed up thing to do.
Yeah.
They find a look-alike, and they corner him in an alley, and Dabu beats him up, and Taichi sees them, takes a picture, and Arakawa points out, hey, it's that college guy Taichi. He took a picture of us, and they chase after him, but lose him. This freaks out Taichi because he's like, there's a traitor in our midst. Somehow he knew it was me. I was wearing a mask, but he knew who I was. Well, that's because
how did he know?
Arakawa saw a hippo, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then I missed the scene where Arakawa bumped into Yano, and we get to talk about Yano now, the porcupine, because when he bumps into him, Yano says everything in rap.
Love it. I love this character.
So what do you guys think?
He
of
reminds
Yano?
me so much of Sonic, the
Yes.
animated series, if his eyes were bigger.
Yep. He was probably the biggest and only like source of energy, like a character that was constantly running around, overflowing with energy. He was posing.
And
he was
sick
posing.
flows.
Sick flows, man. I love one of my favorite scenes. One of my absolute favorite scenes is when he is indisposed and somebody wants to come in and talk to him, and his henchman is standing at the door saying, no, he's busy right now. And then we get a shot of what he's doing, and he's actually in the background with the radio, playing probably a CD or an MP3 or something, and he's got headphones on. He's just kind of getting down to the rhythm because he's got to practice his own rapping for when he freestyles. And I don't know, I absolutely loved every time the music changed when this character was on screen, and he did such a fantastic job with the rhythm. Even though it was coming across in dub, the subtitles sometimes would rhyme, and I love that. It was great.
Jason, your thoughts on him?
Basically everything Jeremy said, except I found him much less charming. But I did. It was a little frustrating for me because I'm not the fastest reader on the planet, so I'm pausing nearly every 2 lines because I have to catch up to what he's rapping in order to try and get some context. And then I just stopped caring and I gave up and I just waited for whoever else he was giving the information to would sum it up. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you, anime. Actually, there was one point, I forget who it was, but it was like, what did he say?
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's trying to tell me.
You know, one thing that's been thrown out about this anime is that the dialogue is very Tarantino-esque. That it's got that rapid fire, pop, 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 pop. It almost has a rhythm to it, and this takes it up a whole nother notch. But and we had to watch it in sub. There is no dub of it yet. But I did kind of wanted to see if a dub would be able to capture that, because they did it so well. And you guys have said it's hard sometimes to follow along when you're having to read with it, but they talk very fast, especially even back and forth. It's back and forth. Everyone's very quick-witted almost all the time, which I liked, but I would have liked to see if an English dub could keep that up, which probably isn't easy to do when you got to match lips and stuff. It would have been interesting to see.
Monogatari, or whatever that was, about the vampires, is probably the closest thing I've seen to it.
Yeah. But I like Yano. Very, very up there with Dobu for favorite character. I like both the Yakuza members, and when he started rapping, I was just like, oh, I did not see this coming. Okay, yeah, that's cool. And my favorite part about it is that it's ridiculous, and all the characters realize it's ridiculous, but because he's a powerful Yakuza member, no one's telling him he's ridiculous, and so he just gets to keep doing it. And I really wanted to see a scene with him and the mob boss to see if he stopped, because I imagine the mob boss would be like, what are you doing? Stop that. That's dumb. Yeah. and that has someone more powerful than him point out that you're making a bad choice with whatever that is you're doing. That's a weird thing to do. Knock it off. Yeah. That would have been a very good scene.
Actually, you said something interesting. I almost want to see that anime of Dabu and Yano competing to be best Yakuza member. Like that's the anime
Yeah.
I would love to see.
How is
That
that
would
not
be
this
interesting.
anime? That's what this is.
Well, it didn't
That's a
focus
side
enough.
story in this anime.
Yeah.
It's one of the main stories. Like Jeremy said, the heist is the whole thing.
You
Is
just gotta
one's
cut the boring
For like
other
4
story
episodes.
main character out of it. Just focus on them. Let them be the main characters.
Yeah, there you go.
I do have a question though. It sounded to me like Yano killed people. Because when he was beating up the monkey guy, he said, "We're gonna squeeze the life out of you at the end." I don't think he was talking about money. It sounded like he was talking about killing him and then getting rid of the body.
I think he's very similar to Dabu, where he wants you to believe that. Even though he's definitely involved with the disposal of a previous dead body.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which he doesn't want the boss to know about.
right, I do think if he killed someone, though, or at least he's at least not killing someone as part of the job. Maybe on the side, if he can keep it underground, I could see him as someone he's okay with killing, but his boss is not. So he definitely cannot do that as part of his work. Because if he gets found out he killed someone, he's out. Can't break the. So I don't know. I definitely can see the potential there, but I never got the impression. It's hard to know just because Dabu does the same thing. I'm going to kill you when he's never going to. He's going to go bury his gun.
Dabu doesn't have sick flows.
It's just more convincing when it rhymes.
He does. Yeah, he does threaten EG and makes him call his mom.
Yeah.
I'm
Like he's
guessing
gonna
that's
get as much money out of the mother as possible.
I thought it was just to establish like no one will know you're missing if you've called your mom recently.
Oh, that's true.
That was my assumption.
This scene was like so confusing because like if it was a more realistic anime and it was dressed up in a more serious tone, I think that would have been more impactful as like a really scummy thing to do from Yano. But they were animals, and it was just like I'm not sure what and EG's a terrible person. Like I'm like what.
I enjoyed the dichotomy of the cute animals living these horrible experiences. Take your Baka 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 drinks.
We're going to have to start catching up because Troy's the only one saying dichotomy lately.
Right?
Yeah.
Falling way behind.
That's because I'm an alcoholic.
No. Just looking for a reason.
I counted them up and then do them all on the same night.
That's right.
After you score on ourselves.
So Yamato asked Arakawa for a ride, and Arakawa had gotten instructions from Dobu that, hey, when he asks for the cam data, tell him you want 1 billion yen. And this is also because, hey, it's come out that there's a guy in the area who won 1 billion yen on the lottery. And so there's 1 billion yen floating out there. And so this is all to kind of drive each other into a point. And so he does. The manager gets very upset, but he's like, I'll have to talk to the people I work for. So he drives him over to the pier, even sees the scooter and almost goes in and sees his friend, but doesn't because he gets called by Goriki to leave. So Arakawa leaves. But yeah, so Yamamoto goes in and tells him that he wants 1 billion yen. And Yano's like, oh, Dobu's involved. This is going to get complicated. Okay, so here we're going to come up with a plan. We're going to steal 1 billion yen from that lottery guy, and then we'll buy the dash cam data, and we'll get away with what we did. Oh yeah, that's where he makes some calls to the mom. Yep, that was sad. Then Dabu, they call it a bank heist, but they're not robbing the bank. The bank's in on it.
Yeah.
They're actually robbing the lottery winner. And so Dobu tells him that that's the plan. And while he's telling Arakawa the plan, Arakawa records him and takes a picture of him, sends it to Little Diamond, and then lets Imui know that, hey, they're going to rob you. You need to lay low for a while and post online that you didn't win, that you lied. And he does, but Yano's like, oh no, that was a fake picture. We can tell that he really did.
He did such a terrible job on the edit too. He's like, yeah, this is an amateur job.
And this is where Arakawa remembers where he's seen the calico cat and that it was, and he figures out that Eiichi's in danger.
Now, they make such a big fuss about how Arakawa is able to recognize people even by just their silhouettes if he's seen their faces.
Mhm.
He saw her face on that dating app, but he was not able to recognize her.
Didn't he say he has a hard time with pictures?
I don't remember him saying that. Maybe I just missed it.
I assumed his like weakness is cat people because he's running into a lot of these cats and he seems to be having a harder time remembering them than some of the more distinct animals. There are a lot of cat characters in this, and all of them he has a hard time identifying.
So maybe he just categorizes anyone who he can't put in as a, some interesting animal as, well, they're a cat then.
I was wondering if there was some attribute that made them all
Catch-all.
cats. Because there's like 3 or 4 cats in this that he sees and sees only as a cat. Because he has the same problem with Yuki. He's seen Yuki before and has a hard time remembering her. And like the calico, he's like, I know I've seen a calico cat. Where was it? He knows he recognizes her, but he can't remember where he recognized her from. So I just wonder if cats are a weakness for him. And maybe that's why he doesn't realize if the cat in his apartment is a person or an animal.
Yeah. I guess there's a lot of free get out of jail free cards for
mental illness.
Yeah. For the situation of the storytelling because of that mental illness. Yeah.
So Arakawa gets Dabu to come back to the wharf with him to save his friend. And he also mails Taichi, hey, Dabu's going to be at the wharf. Go there and quit being a coward. And we see the scene of him sleeping with a groupie, and then like he hits her because she's like, people are saying you're not actually a hero and you're actually just stealing money and being a coward.
Did he hit her? I thought he just broke the lamp.
I thought he slapped her. No, she slaps him.
Yeah,
wrong. He breaks the lamp and she slaps him.
Yeah.
And so they go to the wharf, but Gamer Skull Mask starts chasing them, but he gets in an accident because of a cat that crosses the road.
Mm-hmm.
So that van crashes. They reach the wharf, and they have to fight the polar bear. So Dobu fights them. I think this is also another clue because baboons shouldn't be able to overpower a polar bear.
I was even thinking, like, why the heck is the gorilla putting up with the baboon? Come on. Right? But you're right. Polar bear should have trumped him.
So he fights them. Meanwhile, Arakawa goes in, he saves his friend, and he just leaves. And Dobu wins his fight, and then when he comes around the corner, he gets shot. He assumes it's Skull Mask, but we find out later it's actually little Diamond, who gets in trouble for just shooting the guy, and gets put on a little bit of probation there. But then at the same time, Taichi shows up, and this is where he like Taichi's like, I caught you, I'm the hero, and he grabs him. He's like, oh, never mind, I'm not the hero. And he's like, you're a narcissist, you need to stop doing this. And he makes him make a video confessing that, like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. We should leave Dobu alone. I was just scamming everybody. I will not be giving the money back. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
No refunds.
No refunds.
And then he gives Dobu his car. And so Dobu's like, that's the least you can do since you got me shot in the leg and ruined all my schemes with your internet videos.
Yeah, see, that's what was so weird to me is I'm like, Dobu seems like the kind of guy that would at least, beat the crap out of him for it. But he doesn't even do that. Instead, he gives him a psychology.
Also, it's really confusing that he gets shot in the leg, and whoever shot him, which we find out in Little Diamond, doesn't come around the corner to like either finish him off or arrest him or like
it's like
a random shooting, and then he takes off. Like what?
And when I saw the scene, I go, "Who shot him?" And my daughter goes, "Well, it had to be Skull Mask." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I missed that. Maybe I was making a note or something." But yeah, I was also very confused. Why isn't Skull Mask going to finish him off? Why isn't anyone following up on this? They just shot him and left.
Yep.
But I do love that Little Diamond brags about it later. I'll shoot you again. Bam, bam.
Yeah, it's a weird. They do it a few times with like some kind of weird decision storytelling wise, where you're just left going, I don't know if I like that. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Troy hates us right now.
Yeah, I know.
yeah, I fully disagree, but we're moving on. They get his monkey friend to the clinic, and then Otokawa and Goriki, they talk about Shirakawa. This is the scene where he's basically like, yeah, she confessed everything, and it was because of her boyfriend, but I mean, she could have made better choices, and I appreciated that. We see, then we get a scene of Iji throwing the ring away and then going into the water to try to get it back. And then Goriki starts investigating. He goes to Arakawa's home and talks with his landlady, who says that this since he's lived there since the 5th grade in that apartment, and it's been paid for by a mysterious foundation that Arakawa doesn't want to be paying for him. He wants to do stuff on his own, but the money is kept coming anyway, and so the landlady has been putting it away in savings for Arakawa to take at a later time when he finally needs it. And he also learns Arakawa's parents are actually dead because Arakawa had just said they're missing.
And he's lived there alone since 5th grade.
Yep.
The Homo sapiens lose in the comedy competition. They have been appearing here and there in the story. And then this giraffe high schooler comes up to the warthog guy and he's like, ditch the horse and get with the giraffe. Let me be your comedy teammate. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. We still have the losers bracket. Leave me alone. And then we see Yano plan the bank heist. Yamamoto gets in the cab with Arakawa, and he's like, hey, I think you should still give me that dashboard camera data. And he's like, hey, that guy you scammed was my best friend. And so, look, I want you to join my team. I want you to help me take down the bad guys. And
They call it a badger game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
badger game.
It's a honeypot.
He has them drive out to like this construction site, which, come on, when
Come
you're dealing
on.
with the Yakuza, never go out to
Yeah.
like the empty construction site.
The moment he said, turn right here, turn right, I'm like, you're going to your grave. What are you doing?
Yamamoto pulls off his belt and tries to strangle Arakawa from behind, but he's saved by Miho Shirakawa with her amazing martial arts.
So why is she there?
Let's see if I have a note.
Another clue that they're not animals. When the belt comes over his head, it doesn't go under his tusks. It goes through his tusks.
That's true.
Look at you.
That's true.
I was wondering, I was like, wait, wouldn't the tusks block it?
Yeah, they should have.
And then, like, the blubber would prevent him from being able to put enough pressure on his neck. But
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I feel like she said while she was there. I feel like there was a
No.
comment, but I don't have anything written down.
I was paying
I don't
really
remember.
close attention during the conversation because I was like, well, she came out of nowhere. What are you doing here? Is this just to use your capoeira? Yes, it is.
Maybe that's where she lives, in the empty lot.
Yeah, the empty lot of this construction site. I mean, it would have made sense if there was some, preconceived idea that they were going to go to this construction lot, but that was clearly the Fox's momentary decision. Like, he had just made that decision on a whim. Okay, I'm going to kill you. So she had no way of knowing that he would ever be there. It's really weird.
They get Yamamoto to agree to help, basically, which is to foil. You look at the clock and you tell me not to move on. There's not a reason that I can think of. Anyway, Yamamoto, join us. Yes, I will. Because how do you want me to do that? Mess up the heist and get yourself arrested. Okay, well, as long as that helps the band, that's all I care about.
Which would not have sold me, except that he started complaining and even got beat up by Polar Bear guy for the same reason. He wanted out long before.
Yeah, he doesn't. And they do set up, like, because of the murder, they got tied to the Yakuza themselves and now having to do the Badger games and all this crap, and they do not want to be part of it. Arakawa finds a GPS in his back seat, and he thinks it's from Skullface. It is not. He goes to the sauna, and the mob boss is there, and the taper, and he knows his name, and then he's like, "That's weird." And the taper's like, I'm glad it wasn't you who did the kidnapping, but I still 5% think it might be you."
Yeah.
Yano. I love the scene that the polar bear figures out where the lottery winner lives. He's like, "Look, I tracked down the sounds from this thing, and you can see in this post." And Yano's like, "That's a great job, but that's actually really creepy what you just did there."
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's like CSI.
Imagine that in rap, though. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Dabu tells Arakawa the plan, which is very detailed heist plan. Basically, we give them one of the cases of the money, and then the rest are fake, and then we come in and get all the real ones, and then we still steal the one real one from him later. And he calls this is probably one of my favorite jokes in the whole thing. He said, "The plan will be called Odd Taxi." And Arakawa goes, "That's not as cool a name as you think it is." And that made me laugh. Anime getting to poke fun of itself.
Yeah.
And then we see more Goriki investigating Arakawa's past. Arakawa warns the lottery guy that the Yakuza are coming and that he's just got to, they're going to capture you, but go along with it, and I promise I'll save you. And then the drowned body has been identified. It's the missing girl, the singer Yuki from Mystery Kiss. The girl he's been giving rides to, who's definitely not dead. And Arakawa's like, "Wait, that doesn't make any sense." Anyway, then we get some backstory of what really happened to Yuki when it's told from the Poodle Girl's point of view. She joined this band. She met Yuki. Yuki was obviously a very hard worker. And when they started getting ready to premiere, one of the producers said Yuki should be the star, the center of the idol group, which Rui's very competitive, and that's not okay with her. So she asked Yuki as a favor to meet her at their management office, and she was going to ask her to refuse, or she was going to kill her. But when she gets there, she's already dead. And the band and Yamamoto comes in. He's like, "Oh my God, did you kill her?" She's like, "No, she was already dead. I was going to kill her, but she's already dead." So he calls Yano, and Yano helps them dispose the body, which sounds like it wasn't just wrap up and throw in the river, but more like dismember and detach things. And this is why Mystery Kiss now has to do all these crimes and help Yano with all his schemes.
And why they have to wear masks.
Why they have to wear, yes, because they hired a body double basically, and this girl's like, "I'm so glad I got in. I was the fourth person," and I'm like, "Oh, that's really freaking suspicious." Yeah. And then because of everything that's happened, Dabu is worried that their hideout has moved, so they kind of change up the plan. Imune gets captured, and Arakawa is like, "I need someone to mess up checking the cases. They need to check 2 cases so they know it's fake, and then the whole plan will blow up in everyone's face, and then the cops can arrest him." But no one's available. Yamamoto has to deal with apologizing to the public that, "Hey, we pretended that this girl was someone who was missing, and now that person's dead. Our bad." And Little Diamond's also missing. And then the Homo sapiens break up. They do a joke thing and get in a fight. It's not going well for them guys.
Doesn't really seem to matter.
I was still sad about it.
Okay.
Yeah. You and only you.
Yep.
And then
you answer the email, right?
I do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's bring this home. We got 2 episodes left.
Okay.
So the heist doesn't get ruined. Everything almost goes exactly to plan. Yano, he only checks 1 case. He's like, "Let's check 2 cases," and they're like, "We'll check it later." And so they throw all the things in the van. They have Imui, and they drive off. Big Diamond pulls them over. He's part of the plan, and he's like, "Hey, why do you have all this money in the bag?" I'm like, "Well, this guy won the lotto." "Well, let me look at it." "Oh, these are fake. I'm arresting all of you except for you, Imui. You should leave." and throws them in the cop car, while Dabu gets the real payment of 900 million and then comes and steals the van with the one legit case, brings that back to Arakawa, throws it in the back of his taxi. Skullface shows up, and Dabu's like, "Oh, good, I'll get my gun back. This is perfect." And he's like, "What about his gun?" He's like, "No, he's out of bullets. If you count all the shots he's shot through the whole anime, it's 6 bullets. There's only 6. He's out of bullets." So they go out, and he's like, "What do you even want?" And the guy's like, "The taxi driver ruined my phone. I want an apology." And Arakawa comes out, and he does apologize. He's like, "That was rude of me as a taxi driver. I'm sorry, I was in a hurry. I shouldn't have done that." And then he accidentally drops the eraser, the one that was part of the scheme. And he's like, "Wait a second, are you Ditch 11?"
Yeah, exactly.
And Dabu's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "Wait, let me check his phone." And Arakawa's like, "Yeah, he is. You can tell right here. This is him." And he's like, "Okay, so it was me. So what about it?" So he shoots Dabu in the stomach because he did have one more bullet. And then he's like, "I don't have anything left." And he starts screaming, and he just runs off, screaming into the hills. And then Dabu's like, "Arakawa, take me to this doctor. He'll know how to pick me up." And Arakawa's like, "I'm sure the cops are coming, and I'm just going to leave you here, and I'm going to help that kid get his money back. Bye."
He literally fishes the keys to the vehicle out of his vest while he's bleeding out on the ground.
But before he calls Imui and tells him, "You go, come get your money." But at the same time, Yano had beaten up Big Damon after realizing it was a scam, kicked him out of the cop car, and had now driven the cop car back here, sees Arakawa, and starts chasing him in his taxi. We do get a scene of little Damon talking to his brother, who's now beat up on the ground, like, "Hey, you're going to be arrested. Why'd you do this evil thing?" And he pulls out the same little charm that hangs in Arakawa's mirror, and he's like, because the foundation that pays for orphans due to vehicular killings, or whatever it's called, like, that is a really specific foundation.
Yeah.
Foundation is that. He's like, Dabu's Dabu's involved with him, and so I wanted to help them. He's like, "Well, you still did bad things, and you're going to prison." And this is where I turned to my daughter. I was like, maybe I should have been asking what this foundation is since we first heard about it. I might have whiffed on that. And yeah, it's an important question. All right, then we come to the big reveal. Guriki's already figured this out, but Arakawa is, while being chased, we're hearing his journal being read. As a little kid, he was picked on, didn't like people, couldn't look people in the eye, couldn't talk to people. Kids called him a little walrus. His mother beat him, ate all the food. His dad was always drunk. And his dad would go sleep with women while leaving Arakawa at the zoo, where his favorite animal is the walrus. So he decided he wished he was a walrus. One night, his mom just went crazy, threw the drunk dad in the back, put him in the car, and they went for a night drive. That's why Arakawa loves night drives. It was one of his favorite memories of all time. That night, his mom decided to murder all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's dark and messed up. The mom drove off the pier into the water, and Arakawa has had a fear of water the whole thing, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't remember this happens. But yeah, she drove off in the water to kill them. And when he woke up in the hospital, everyone was an animal, and he thought his parents just went missing. He doesn't know where they went. He doesn't understand anything the doctors really said to him. He just, hey, it's easy to talk to people now. They're animals, and I'm a walrus. So that's the big reveal. And then, like, everyone's watching this car chase, because now all the cops are chasing, because they saw one cop car chasing a taxi, and the Diamond's gotten involved. So there's this huge cop car taxi chase. Yano and his goon are trying to drive Arakawa off the road. They end up on this bridge that's not fully constructed, and Arakawa drives off the bridge and into the water. Literally, circle of life, thematic, whatever you want to call it. Good storytelling is what I call it. Goes into the water.
Okay.
Also, really, really interesting that this anime made every character have a backstory that tied into something dropping into water.
Yeah, that was weird.
Everyone is around in some location being able to see this taxi drive into the water, and it reminds them all of their past and helps a lot of them with their trauma. I don't understand how most of them work, but at least
Yeah,
was
because
thematic.
like some of them are literally soap dropping into a bathtub full of water.
Well,
Another
Or
one
chicken
is
into a
no, no,
vat of fat.
into a vat of fat. Exactly.
Hold
Like,
on.
that's not trauma fixing.
Ichimura's thing about the bath was established, though. She grew up poor in a poor
Sure.
house, so
Yeah.
she always was taking baths. And that even now, she's always at the bath house. She uses baths to handle her thing. So soap dropping in a tub makes sense.
So-
for her.
When you yourself would be standing on, I don't know, let's say a beach, and you see a vehicle fly off of a bridge into the water, is that where your mind goes? Is to some like, oh, that's similar to when I throw fried chicken into the deep fat fryer. Or do you
Only on
go-
New Year's
Or, okay.
when it's snowing.
Yeah. Or do you go, that car just flew into the water off of a bridge? Like,
Well, that's what
I don't
Taichi says.
I don't understand how these characters
And also, like,
would have any kind of, I don't know.
all of these characters just happen to be within eyesight
Exactly.
of this happening.
That frustrated me to no end as well.
Guys, it's not real. It's a TV show with themes and characters. It's fiction.
Well, yeah, but I mean that
Wait.
that sort of approach could be applied to any anime, and then what's the point
Animal
of even
people are
discussing them?
fake?
They're not animal people. We've already discussed that. All right,
Anyways,
so
he dives into the water.
dives into the water.
Yeah.
Shirakawa,
And money goes everywhere.
money goes everywhere, even though they get most of it back.
And Shirakawa jumps into the water.
Shirakawa
after.
jumps in, breaks her foot, kicking the window, the
Mhm.
impossible to break window open,
Off screen.
saves him. And when he wakes up, now everyone is a human, and he can talk to humans now, and he himself is a human. We get to see everyone, almost everyone in human
Mhm.
form. There's a few characters we don't see. Dabu's in the hospital, and Little Diamond visits him and is like, "Hey, you're going to prison? Ha ha ha! I shot you. I got in trouble for it, but I shot you." What else are there? He's in the hospital. Oh, he gets money. We do need to talk about this. So he gets money from Imui, the money that was in the back of the cab. And he's like, "Well, I don't need money." He's like, "Well, is there anything you want to do with it?" He's like, "Okay, there is something I want to do with it." And he goes to the taper, who's now just the mob boss, and gives him a locker key to the money. And this mob boss, the big overarching thing, this mob boss is the foundation for kids whose parents are killed in auto accidents.
Very
And
specific.
what Dabu and Yano have been doing is raising money for him to give to kids to take
Mhm.
care of them. And we find out, like, because Dabu had said, "I have one rule that my boss gave me," and then so he asked him, "What's the one rule?" The one rule is no killing. So now we know, okay, those bad guys wouldn't have killed this whole time. It kind of changes the context of everything Dabu has said, at least. But yeah, and Jeremy, I know you have a problem with it, I'm sure,
Oh yeah.
because here you're giving money to a horrible person who's done horrible
Yes.
things.
Okay, so the whole concept of everything that mattered to him here, of getting Dabu and Yano and all these guys put in prison for the things that they were doing, if the boss is only benefiting and able to give the money to people because of the things that they were doing, and they're gone now, what do you think the boss is going to do? He's going to get more henchmen to keep doing the same thing. So if you give money to this boss, you're just another henchman.
Actually, the boss said he's retiring.
Okay.
Because he says.
I think that's an easy out to be like, oh, you're retiring now, so yeah, storyline cinched up and it's fixed. But I think that's bullcrap because you locked up these guys for doing all these horrible things, and you think the boss didn't know what they were doing?
Yeah, no, he calls everything you just said is addressed though, and you don't have to like the resolution. So
Well, I think it's self-contradictory. Like, how is it that the main character can be so completely like, I'm gonna lock these guys up for the horrible things they did, but because you helped me and you helped more people than you hurt, I'm gonna give you this money. Well, didn't they also help more people than they hurt through the boss?
because his whole life has been wanting to give this money to this man.
Why? He didn't take the money from the man. It's been sitting there building up because he didn't want it.
He didn't
He could
take it
skip that money
anymore.
back.
He made it so he didn't need that money anymore. And that's why he got the charm. You get the charm when you're no longer financially dependent on the foundation. But from the beginning, he has said, my goal in life is to pay back the people who helped me. That has been his number one goal. And now he is faced with this conundrum. And it definitely, that's why he's like, what is the one rule? Why aren't you in prison? He even says, I don't like what you did, and you've probably hurt a lot of people. Maybe you've helped more than you've hurt, but I'm not going to judge. I'm here to do the thing that I've always wanted to do. He says, well, he doesn't say judge. He says, I'm not going to criticize, and I'm going to do the thing that I've always wanted to do. So he gives them the money, and then he's done with them.
Well, he did even bow to him and thank him, and
he says to use
how
it for
great
kids.
he was.
He does say, and use this for more kids.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It's just it contradicts everything that he just did. Like, it suddenly
$1 million,
okay.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is how much money did the foundation give him? Essentially, how much does it cost to raise a child? I guarantee you, it's not $1 million. So he gave him a whole lot more than what he received too. It's very clear that he's basically donating to a cause that he approves of, but he doesn't approve of the method by which the cause previously gained its money.
Yes.
So that is a contradiction. That is a self-contradiction.
But he goes into that knowing it's a contradiction. He went into there going, I know I don't like the way you did this. I know I don't like this, but there's also been my entire life has been working towards giving this money to you.
I think it undermines everything that he just did then.
Oh, I think he's a complex character in that he made a complex decision.
No, he played the field. He played both sides. He did whatever he wanted on a whim. He decided, I'm going to.
It was not a whim. It was his whole life's desire. From the first episode, he said, I want to do this.
Well, but he literally put his life on the line to put these criminals in jail for something that he doesn't approve of.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree at this point because you're kind of going over the same points.
But he did that for his friends, for Iji and for Shirakawa. He did that for them.
Right. He would set aside his own life's goal because if he's dead, he can't repay it. So he's setting aside that life goal because this is more important than his life goal.
Right,
but now it's not more important than his life goal.
Now his friends are clear, so they're not involved anymore. And so he's just, okay, now I'm going to fulfill that final goal that I've wanted and complete my character arc, and it's done.
But it wasn't just about his friends. No, that is false because it was about all the things that Dobu did before that were criminal, that were bad. He even talks about how you're a bad guy. Even if I do think you're kind of a nice guy, I know you're still a bad guy.
He specifically says that when Shirakawa was telling him what a nice guy he is, and he gets really mad that the girl he likes is talking about Dabu again. And he's like, nope, I decided I don't like him, and I'm busting him. He's a bad guy.
But he says it again when he's talking to Dobu.
Well, one thing I got to point out real quick. If he's mob boss and he just gave mob boss money, does that mean he's now an accomplice to crimes?
Yes, he is. That's what I'm saying. Is he is the new thug. He put himself in the same shoes.
He hasn't done
anything
thuggish.
Right, but he funded a Yakuza boss. You think that the Yakuza boss is never going to look to him for more funds? That's not how Yakuza work.
I don't know. He's retiring, so it's fine.
Oh, bullcrap.
I mean,
you can't just put a pretty bow on it and cinch it and be like, yeah, don't worry about the ethics of this.
They literally did. And they, again, pointed out that the ethics of this are questionable. It is a complicated decision made by a complicated character who's very uncomfortable with the decision, but has decided this is the way I'm going with it.
Well, I don't agree with it. I don't like it, and I think he undermined everything that he did. All right. That's just my final stance on it.
All right. Then we get a scene with the fake Yuki. She's walking down the street. She's talking with her mom on the cell phone and bragging about how well the murder she committed has gone. Better than she would have possibly imagined. And she's considering doing it again. So she's a solo act. Because it went so well the first time. But today she's looking for that taxi. And oh, what do you know? Here it is. And she climbs inside the taxi. Now, Shirakawa has figured out who the murderer it is, and he's even said in self monologue and people are like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." He needs to tell the police who the killer is, but she climbs into his cab and he's like, "Where do you want to go?" And she just gets this big smile on her face, and that's the end. And of course, he doesn't recognize her because she's not a cat anymore, and so he's in imminent danger.
I mean, how dangerous can a little? I don't know. I guess they look a lot younger than they are. They're actually like 18 now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but she looks like she's like 12. So
she's at least confident in what she's doing. I mean, that is a confident serial killer right there.
Yeah.
Right.
She did not look like she would be much of a threat, just the way they drew her. But I have to keep reminding myself, yes, she's actually older than that.
I took the ending to mean on the Tokyo streets, it never ends. You're never truly free from the cycles that are causing all this pain and heartache.
To
okay.
Me, it felt like that was just kind of the wrap up at the end of like, oh yeah, don't forget, got to exposit a little bit about who the killer was because we probably didn't get that super clear, and so we got 5 minutes left, so kind of shove her in there and do something with her.
All right, let's go on to final reviews. Jason, you're first.
There's a lot of things I dislike about the anime, and there's a lot that I like. Most of the characters I actually can't stand because I don't like their decision making, and I don't like the world, or at least I don't like the message the anime is saying about their society. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's more of a reflection of reality than I would like. But yeah, anyways, it's kind of middle of the road for me. So,
Yakuza running kid charities is the reality.
That's reality.
yeah, exactly. I give it a 3. It's not a must watch for me. It's just there's some good, there's some bad. Middle of the road.
All right, Jeremy, your review.
Yeah, so clearly I have a lot of issues with this anime, but it still doesn't quite make it down to a 2. The art is really good. I love what they did with that cool filter for the background and how it played into his mental dysfunction. I loved how the I knew there was one other thing I liked. Okay, I loved the rapping, the rhythm. I loved that character. And I thought that, there was a lot of potential in the twist at the end. But overall, I've got to give it a 2. It almost makes it to a 3, but it's just not quite there for me.
Okay. This is a 5 for me.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Just kidding. Go on.
I'm not alone. There are dozens of us. Dozens. No, I felt like this is the first anime in a while that I've had some meat to chew on with thinking about characters and themes and meanings, and having a mystery to solve and an actual mystery to solve that. They gave out more and more clues. I missed a lot of clues, but I was still able to pick up on some and get to that answer. But that still have mysteries and twists that surprised me. I didn't get that little Damon was the shooter. The other guy involved. There are still little things that I didn't pick up on, clues I missed, and that's really fun. That this probably benefits from a second rewatch, even though I don't have time for it. I'm one of the fans of this among many. I'm not the only person who's praised it, even though it is weird to be on the outside of this. I haven't been the odd man out in a while on our podcast, but everyone needs to have their turn. But it was, I had a blast watching it. And in fact, I started it because we waited 3 weeks to record. I started it too soon, and I was like, "Oh, crud! Why did I start so early? I don't want to start 3 weeks, but before I have to talk about it." But I just really enjoyed the complexities of it and the themes of it, and just having another original anime, no manga or light novel that it's trying to keep pace with or interpret correctly, telling a story that's made for animation, that's unique, and again, just that isn't there's a trope in there, but it's not an anime trope. The fact that there's almost no anime tropes in this entire thing was really pleasant, except for maybe Ichi's character. So
It is
5 for
very
me.
Very unique.
Yeah, like me. All right,
It's
our
odd.
Yeah.
next anime is a crime mystery. It's one we've watched before. We're going to part 2 of Moriarty the Patriot. So these are episodes 12 through 24. This is technically the rest of the first season, but they had to stop. I believe it was COVID that broke up the season in 2 parts. So we are coming back, and we're going to finish the battle between Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes in anime form. So that is what we'll be talking about next. All right. Let's go ahead and tell you about where you can talk to us on our social media. We have Twitter at Baka Podcast.
Smooth.
We have our email, the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment wherever you found this podcast and it'll get to us. That's called Pulling It Right Before You Crash.
Well done.
All right. I think now we can say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.